show, which means shades on.
Oh, all right.
All right. And the intro music goes on like so.
You've tuned in to COVID Marketing with Brent Kobayashi and Arthur Tutt, the show to support small business not just to survive, but to thrive.
That's right. We are live with COVID Marketing episode number 116. That show that's supporting you out there to survive and to thrive. We come at you almost week daily at 11 Eastern Standard Time. If you have questions on marketing or business or whatever, you let us know in the comments wherever you find folk are seeing this. I am Brent Kobayashi, president of Kobayashi Zeitguys, a marketing agency here in Toronto, Canada. And with me is Mr. Arthur Tutt, a marketing specialist at the KZ.
And if you love all of these amazing jokes and the show, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notify buttons, bells, all the hit the bell so you never miss a show.
All right. Okay. So, and today we have the lovely Ruth Henderson, an experienced expert in project management, process mapping, and executive coaching. And Ruth is the general manager at Kobayashi Zeitguys. And
I am.
Yeah. You joined us in the middle of all of the stuff that's happening out there.
What stuff? What?
Yeah. I don't know. I heard something.
Something. Yeah,
Something
I did. Why?
I know. In August, I think it has been.
Yeah, somewhere around. I think it was like I was there for a week in July and then I took a week off. And then
That's right. Back. I know. You're like, I'm gone. Goodbye.
Yeah, peace out.
That's enough for me. Oh, right. So great to have you on, Ruth. Like I knew I actually knew as soon as we started this show, I wrote you down on my dream list of people to have on this show.
Really?
Yes. And then I was like, you know what? I don't know if she'll, I don't know if I can get the Ruth, but maybe if I hire her, she has to.
Did you finally talk to my agent?
Yes. No, I fired your agents. You're exclusive to me.
There you go. There you go. Well, okay. I'm happy to be here. I've been hearing a lot about the show, seen some good clips, and hope I can do it justice.
Okay, so let's dig into it. The power of process. So before we start digging in, because I know out there right now, they're seeing the title, they're coming on this show, they're saying, what's this about? We're gonna say, we're getting into process, and there are like, 0.2 people out of our 10 that are watching going, yay.
Yeah.
But those ones that are going yay are going like, oh my God, yay! I'm so ready and excited for this.
You know why? Because they're deep down process nerds like me.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. All right. So,
for
the deep down process nerds like you, tell us why you love process and what led you to being like this expert advisor.
Well, they're the ones who already know why, because they're probably the same as me. But for the other 98.8 or 99.8 people who really don't know, if you're the kind of person who's always, I'm in line trying to fix things and speed them up. I'm the one whose foot is tapping, or I'm going, if they just had a sign, or, jumping, if I could just jump over the counter and help, because they really don't need to go back and forth 8 times. They could do this all at once. So I have always, since I was a kid, been that person who just wants to make things faster, not because I'm impatient, but because I feel like people could make things so much easier on themselves. So I always thought that way. And in my career, my first career, I guess, I was at Ford of Canada for 14 or 15 years. And about 2/3 of the way through, I was tapped to be on this program called Six Sigma, which I won't get into too much, but it's a process improvement. Yeah, it's not, no, people are called black belt, different level of black belts, but it's nothing to do with karate. It's about, unfortunately, it's about statistics. So I'm not even going to talk about that because I will lose those 0.2 people. Yes. But shush, Arthur. But I was tapped to be in that, and I said, statistics was my lowest grade in university. Like it was terrible. I almost failed it, and which is another story. But they said that's part of it, but it's more about making things more efficient, getting rid of waste, eliminating defects, making it so that you can't make a mistake. And I thought, well, that seems like genius. So, it was finally, I found my passion. I found this ability to work with people and organizations and make it impossible. Imagine making it impossible to make a mistake. Think about that. That's the goal.
That's funny because the team here knows that I like to go fast, right? Business moves at the speed of decisions.
Yeah.
And it's good to have you on board because one of the things that I'm training the team to do is, of course, celebrate mistakes, because when you make a mistake, you're probably learning something new. And especially if you celebrate, then you're not so worried about making mistakes as you push forward. And a nice antidote, because if you just do that, I mean, Zuckerberg and Facebook are famous for saying, go fast, make mistakes, or something similar to that.
Yeah.
But an antidote to that is, how do we now repeat what we're doing?
Yes.
So I'm actually going to put this in context for all business owners out there, small business owners especially. One of the things that I hear often is, I want to automate my process. I want to automate things that I'm doing and to, integrate my systems and have my online funnel and all that kind of stuff. Just automate. I just want automated sales is a big one. And one of the things that I remember really super clearly that struck home is that you need to fix and trim your processes. You need to understand them, then you need to fix. I think of it as, you need to nip and tuck your processes before you go in ahead and automate them. Because people think, one of the big things is get a virtual assistant.
Oh yeah. To do what?
Yeah, like you could literally say, I need you to do this, and you could have a huge long list of things to do when 10, 20% of it, or maybe more, just should not be done.
Well, what you said is the basics of Six Sigma and process approach, really. Because it's so, first of all, you're right. Absolutely celebrate mistakes, because the point of that is learning from them and eliminating. So processes help you know when there was a mistake and where and why. So that's one thing. Your first thing that you said you need to do, though, is to understand them. So a lot of people listening will go, well, what do you mean by process? What do you mean by process? Well, a process is anything that you do repeatedly over and over and over again. So to a bartender, a process might be making the perfect martini, and they do the same thing every time. To an architect, it might be the process of design and making sure all the appropriate structures and codes are considered in the drawing at the right times. To somebody getting ready to leave the house with 3 kids under the age of 5, a process might be, do I have the diaper bag? Do I have my keys? Do I have my glasses? And now we've messed things up this summer, because now the process is also, do I have masks, right? And I actually had a client once, or my company did, who had that process taped to the inside of the door before they left the house. And they actually went through, do I have all these things? That's a process. So for small businesses, a process can be anything like booking a client. How do you do it? It can be invoicing. It can be employee onboarding. How do you hire people? It can be a project. How do you actually execute a project? Now, if you only do it once and you never do it again, I don't know if I'd spend a lot of time on it. But at KZ, we're doing, that's what we do, projects. So we have executable processes to make sure we don't miss anything and we don't waste time. So when we understand what our processes are, we can start looking at what could make them better.
So let's go back a little bit and tell me, when do you do and when do you do not? So you don't have the do. Like, when do you do and when do you do not? I'm into the poo stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, you're a guy.
It's a guy thing. Yes. I'm like, listen, I'm past 50.
I take offense to this.
Dude, Arthur, you're at the perfect, like, probably, I'm just going to go stereotypical here because we're going into the whatever yucky. So anyways, you're at the perfect age to be just a normal guy. I'm past 50. So I'm like experimenting with, what's it like to be a teenager? What's it like to be a 4-year-old doo-doo? What's it like?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm feeling my mortality and I want to, I don't know, tell doo-doo jokes. Okay. So
When do you do and when do you not do what?
So when you mentioned if you're only going to do it once, don't process it.
Mhm.
But I feel like there's a time when you could process and you could, like, when would you say it's time to now start thinking of a process?
As soon as it's no longer one and done. So, for instance, let's say you have a task
Mm-hmm.
and your task is to, I don't know, you're putting a new sign out front of the business. You're only going to do that once. You don't need a process for how to put a sign outside.
You need a plan, perhaps.
You need a plan, but you don't need a repeatable process. You might need a repeatable process for how to contact vendors if you do that a lot. Let's say you're a business and you have a maintenance contract, you have an insurance contract, you have IT support, you have cleaning, all of the operational support processes. I don't need a process in, like I said, putting up a sign or doing something only once, but I do if it's repeatable. And hiring vendors and maintaining those contracts is repeatable because I'm assuming you're going to do it every year at least. So last time I reviewed the contracts with my vendors, I forgot this and they took advantage of that, and I missed this loophole, or I forgot to ask about that. Now I have a process.
So I'm liking this because one of the things that I know as a small business vendor is you're relying on your memory a lot.
Yes.
And again, past 52, I'm like, where's my
Yeah.
support structure for my memory support structure?
Yeah.
Because when I'm looking at hiring vendors, maybe it's a non-disclosure agreement or it's something, right? It's some
Yep.
sort of stuff. There's a checklist that I might have gone through, even partially, of which if I just do it and send it, what I end up doing, and I think every small business is going to, oh yeah, I did this, and let me see if I can find this document that I sent to that person so I can copy it. And you're looking all over the place for it. But when you're doing something, just say, this is a process.
Yeah.
And file it in your process section, file it in your, actually start creating a little bit of structure around it and start building up at least a list of processes.
Well, yeah. One of the things I like to do when I was consulting and I would go into an organization is I would make a huge list of all the processes. And the first thing people would say is, we don't really have any processes. And I'd say, yes, you do. They're just not written down. And sure enough, that's the case. And then you start going through in terms of priority, because it can get a little, if you're a real process nerd, which I am at heart, but I've had to let go of, you can go overboard and you start documenting all the things and people lose interest. It's silly. I have learned there is a priority list, and those processes that will impact the quality of what you do, or the revenue that you generate, or the satisfaction of your customers and employees are the most important. So again, that would put the vendor maintenance processes low on the list, right? Doesn't mean it's not good, it's low. However, having a process for onboarding a new employee, huge. In fact, there was a study done several years ago in the US, and it showed that the structured onboarding process made employees 58% more likely to stay past 3 years. Just because they had an onboarding. I know you're looking guilty.
Literally, we doubled our staff in 6 months.
I know.
And I'm like, okay, so I guess we have them for 3 years.
Yeah.
Darn.
It's on my list.
Okay, so we have to let them go and hire them again. That's what I'm doing. Okay,
so it's things like that. It's like, that is a critical one. How you execute projects or whatever you do with or for your clients. So if you are a naturopath, how you deliver your services to your clients or your patients would include everything from booking to follow-up summary reports to providing prescriptions or supplement lists. That is your process. And the better you are at doing that in the way the customers want, the happier they are. So for us, we execute projects relating to marketing and branding and websites. And there was another study, and it showed that having a process around how you execute your critical projects has a 70% boost to their success rate. And that just makes sense, right? If you have, okay, we're going to build a house. Go build the house, everybody. And they all showed up on the site that day, somebody with windows and somebody with a bunch of lumber and somebody with sod. It would be chaos. So when you have, the more moving pieces you have and the more people you have involved, the more critical it is to have a process. And the other,
Okay.
go ahead.
No, sorry. I just want to go back to building the house, because
Yeah.
what would be great is like, hey, we're building this house and everybody gets together and we think, oh, the sod. Oh no, we have to dig the sod back out now and put the foundation in,
Yeah.
and then we'll put the sod back, and all that stuff can happen. And it can feel wonderful. It's very like, we're doing it. And at the end, you feel lots of this accomplishment. And going back to celebrating mistakes, if you don't have a process that you're following, which might not have included, don't put the sod in first.
Yeah.
Now you have a process document, a thing somewhere, and it's like, all right, guys, what did we learn? Oh, we learned not to put the sod in first. Let's add that to our process document. Wonderful. Now we know what we're going to do.
Well, yeah.
And there you can actually celebrate the mistake versus next time you build a house 6 months later or 3 months later or 2 months later, you're like, oh, we forgot to tell the new guy not to put the sod in first.
Yeah.
Or I forgot because I'm the new guy. One of the things that developers are very fond of saying, and I think this goes for all businesses, is when they comment in their code, when they write their comments, this is what this means, this is what it does, all that kind of stuff. They're not talking to another developer, because usually they think code commenting is for another developer. They're talking to their future self, because their future self is another developer.
Right.
So one of the things as business owners, especially when you begin, is you don't realize that your processes are actually talking to your future self, let alone the other selves that you might be purchasing.
Yeah.
Sorry, hiring those wonderful actual people, humans.
Yeah.
Sorry. I promise I don't think that I purchased you. Either you, Ruth.
But you know what, Brent? There's more. There's more. It's not just your future self and other projects and processes. It's the other person that you're working with. So there, are you ready for a really nerdy term?
Okay.
Suboptimize-
Nerd it.
Yeah, you ready? Suboptimization fallacy. Isn't that great?
Oh,
So
yeah.
suboptimization fallacy happens when a person with the best intentions improves the processes that they have control over without talking to anyone else. And the improvements that they make, the changes that they make, screw everything else up for everyone else.
So they
imagine,
optimize their thing, but then
Yeah.
it's like, hey, the best way for me to build this website is to do my job is to not tell anybody else, because when I tell anybody else, they get in my way.
Yeah. Or the best way for me to do this is to organize all my files this way. And I'm thinking of Tom, right? Who explained file organization to me and how critical it is. They're organized a certain way because the processes say, go here, get this, do that. And the workflow is very systematic. And as soon as somebody comes in and moves that folder, whoa, I don't even know where to look. And now my workflow grinds to a halt. There's a great story of someone who decided it was more efficient to staple a bunch. This is old. It's a very old story. You may not remember what a stapler is, Arthur, when we had paper. But there's this story of what you want to say it. Go. No.
I was just trying to find paper.
See.
But
I've got paper. There's a story of somebody saying, you know what, I'm right-handed. It is much easier for me to staple really quickly all these packages of things and send them over than to, staple them in the traditional way. And who cares? It's just a pile of documents. And what happened was the machine that had to fold it or do whatever couldn't, with the staples in the upper right-hand corner instead of the left. So they had to be taken apart every time. It's a really old, overstated, classic example of suboptimization fallacy. We organize things so that we can be super efficient in our one role, which is well-intentioned, but we screw it up for everyone else because we've created some wrinkle because we didn't know what everyone else needs. So that's the other thing about process. The person who's putting the sod down doesn't know that the people who are installing plumbing and drainage need that sod not to be put down yet. They're doing it really efficiently and it screws it up.
Okay, so I think probably the classic one of sub-optimization fallacy, especially for a small business owner, is
Yep.
when they start doing things with an executive assistant or some sort of assistant that's trying to manage all of their things. Because what they're doing is, I've got all of these things that I think are important that I've been doing, and I just want to not do them. And so I'm now optimized, and you're sitting there running around, and I'm paying money for you to do stuff, which is just doesn't mean anything for me.
Yeah.
I get it's not quite analogous. It's about figuring out what's actually important or not. But boy, if I super optimize as an owner, I can create, I've seen it. I've created, I don't know, we're in our 25th year. I've probably tens of thousands, if not $100,000 worth of process leakage.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that happens,
drainage.
So the other thing that happens though is people create processes, right? So there's many ways to document them. It doesn't have to be fancy. And it's super engaging as well. If you do decide that there's this process that needs to be documented, having everybody participate in it is a great way of engaging, and it can make it done quickly. People feel like they've provided input. And then you end up with this process. Okay, we've all agreed to do this process, and it goes and it sits somewhere. And nobody pays attention to it. And suddenly somebody sees, oh, Susie over there has gone back to doing things the old way. It's so much easier for her to do that. And nobody cares really. So I'm going to do it my way too. And again, it doesn't really impact their specific role. But suddenly something is missed. The process was improved or done that way for a reason. The output is the customer. And the customer loves the output. But when Susie slips back, it may not make a mistake, but it may. And here's your second nerdy term, normalized deviance. And so when it becomes okay, so think about the person in your neighborhood who rolls through the stop sign. And he does it all the time, and everyone notices it, and no cops are around. They never get a ticket for it. So everybody does it, right? It becomes acceptable to roll through the stop sign. And one day there's an accident. So it's about understanding what the processes are in your business, in your small business, your big business, your team within a big business. Anytime you have a group that's responsible for executing things, you need to understand what the processes are, and you need to understand the most important. And again, they impact the quality of what you do, they impact the customer, they impact the employees, they impact your profits. And then you prioritize them, and then you have to keep looking at them. You have to hold people accountable to them.
So, okay, here, one of the things that went through my mind as far as that kind of normalized deviance type of thing was this feeling of you're not allowed to change a process.
No.
You are allowed to change a process, but you're not allowed to just say, oh, I'm not doing it this time because I'm too rushed, I'm too this, I'm too that, or whatever it is.
Right.
And I don't know if I really feel aligned with that. Maybe what I want to say is you can't change a process because of whatever things that just showed up. You can. However, I don't know, you have to be like, hey, I couldn't do the process. This is what happened. We should probably look at the process and add in this situation or whatever it happens to be, because it can, it can both slow down a business as when the idea is, I think, to support a business.
Yeah. I think that depends on the criticality of the process. So, if it's a safety process, you can't change it just because you're busy that day or something else.
Okay.
You can't, because it could have an impact. And there's a whole different tool for assessing every single step in a safety process and what the importance is of that. Like, talk about nerdy.
Well, super important right now. Like literally the entire world is getting schooled on safety process.
Yeah. So, and we, you know what? We're all struggling with the process of social distancing. Every single one of, I don't know anyone who even best intentioned all of a sudden goes, oh my God, I'm too close to you, and backs up. So the processes are there for a reason, and they catch things, they catch mistakes, they catch missed opportunities. I saw a really great visual that talked about even safety during COVID as a Swiss cheese approach. So you picture all these slices of Swiss cheese with their holes all over the place. And the first filter is, let's say, washing your hands. So all the holes in there, the COVID-19 virus is still getting through those holes. And then it meets the next slice, which is wearing a mask, and the holes are in a different spot. So whatever made it through this one, a lot of those are then stopped here, and there's a few holes here that get out. And then you have another barrier.
Social distancing.
So on,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So process is a bit like that. The steps are designed to not only catch mistakes and to ensure quality, but to make sure everybody's doing the most efficient work and not wasting their time. When we do a process, when we take a look at process, we often find things like bottlenecks. Something sits with somebody for too long and there's a barrier. Usually it's related to getting something approved or signed off on, or a loop where we get stuck in this loop. It's over and over again. We're doing the same thing because it's never done quite right. And it just keeps going back and getting caught. Or too many hands off, too many people are touching things. I taught a course on process improvement in Uganda in 2009. That's kind of random, but I did. It was the government of Uganda, and they were working on the process of getting their teachers paid. So getting a check to the teacher. And they had 5 different people touch the folder with the check in it, literally a manila folder with a check in it, went to 5 different people, and they didn't do anything with it, but it had to go to them. So it's a classic example of waste in a system. So we all have those things where we do them because we think they need to, or because they've always done them, or we're just afraid to take a chance. So what you're saying is, don't challenge the process. Yes, challenge the process, but do it in a loud way. So everyone knows, hey guys, I don't think this makes sense. I don't think that adding this code makes sense, or touching this manila folder with the check in it makes sense. And then everybody can kind of go, oh, let's look at that, da-da-da-da-da, go. There's something to be said for in the moment taking a risk, and you need to assess that risk before you do it. If it's going to, result in an extra day on a project, maybe that's worthwhile. If it's going to impact safety, it's probably not. So there's reasons for that.
Okay. So we need to wrap up because we're actually 9 minutes past. We're a quick show. I know we're a quick show, but I feel like
you're a bit of a nerd at heart.
I think it's,
Just a bit.
I think it's there.
Arthur told a joke.
Yay, boom, yay. Okay, you're going to carry the pre-show tomorrow, okay? Or Friday.
Of course.
Got it? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so what strikes me, everybody talks about wanting to work on their business rather than in their business.
Yeah.
This strikes me as probably the thing that will allow you to work on your business, because you're now stepping back. You're saying, how are we doing this? Step 1, step 2, step 3. So if I were to say, okay, you've got everybody who's watching, they got a little bit of ideas, and they're like, okay, I think maybe, I don't know if it'll be painful at the beginning, but maybe I want to do this. What's the very first couple steps to doing this?
The very first couple steps is sitting down with the people who are doing the thing right now. So whatever that thing is that you want to, and maybe it's just you. If it's just you, you're a small business, you and a business partner, you and an admin, somebody, try and get the people that are actually doing the process and just write it down. And you start off, what's the very, very, very first step? And that can it took us once 45 minutes with a client to get to step 1, because they couldn't all agree on where the process started, which was a huge indicator of the problem in the process. So what is the first thing that we do? Let's say it's signing a customer. You're a realtor and you're signing a customer. What's the first thing you do? That could be all over the place. Well, the first thing I do is I get a call from the customer, or do I reach out to the customer, or somebody asks me a question? What is it? Just decide on one. So it might be a customer reaches out to you, phone, email, text, whatever. What do you do first? And so, okay, I do this, and you write it down. And then, and then we send them the contract. Who sends them a contract? Well, sometimes I send it. Sometimes my admin sends it once we both sent it, right? And then you're like, oh, okay, who needs to send it? How do they know they need to send it? Oh, I see. So I get the call from the customer. I do my sales spiel. They agree to sign up with me. And I send an email to George, my admin, and he sends the contract off. I don't touch it. Good, you've just saved a step, right? And then it goes from there. And just writing it down on a piece of paper is the first thing. And if that's all you do, that's good. Because now you can take that, if it's not paper, maybe it's typed, Arthur. I'm picking on the kid. Because we're both over 50, Brent. We can do that.
The kid with the books, the real books. I'm keeping the
Oh,
legacy alive here.
You have the real book.
All right.
But once you do that, you can store it. And so let's say, here's another advantage. Let's say George wins the lottery tomorrow and he just doesn't come back in. Now you're like, oh my God, I don't know what George does with this stuff, but it's written down. And if you're fancy, you have a process map and all this other stuff. It can be any level. And now you hire somebody else and you go, here's what you do. It helps with training. It helps with all of that.
All right. So I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. We're going to end there.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much.
Thank you so much. Okay. So now we actually have an outro, and then we have different music actually, and it's shades again.
Oh, okay. Future's so bright.
Yes, because the future is so bright. It's a good song, Arthur. You should look it up.
You've tuned in to COVID Marketing with Brent Kobayashi and Arthur Tutt, the show to support small business not just to survive, but to thrive.
All right, so thank you everybody out there for joining us on a process day. There needs to be a process holiday, a process improvement national holiday.
I think that's a great idea. Process all the things.
Yes, listen, when you think about this, as I was saying earlier, this is the way you start working on your biz, not in your biz. And if you are not actually thinking about a process, what happens when I do it, what happens when I have somebody else do it, then part of what you're actually doing, because you might be having it all in your head, but part of what's happening here, if you do not recognize you have a process and you're doing something repeatable, then really you actually, in some respects, don't have a business. You're just doing stuff. Maybe
you're just doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, you're just doing a bunch of stuff and you're not looking to optimize, to grow, or whatever it is. So, I mean, think about your business ambition. Maybe it is, I like to do stuff. Somebody else will tell me the process. I'll follow whatever's happening. That's okay. But if you're actually looking to say, I want to leverage what this thing is that I've built and worked on over time and improve. I mean, I love the idea of writing down the process of I just made a sale and take and what's next, because then you get to look at it and say, how do I, what would surprise and delight my clients? Could I insert some of my value into my processes of how I think this business should express itself? Is it when I win a job that, we don't just say, hey, I want a job, let's send out the invoice and let's go, but you actually say, let's do a round of cupcakes.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's make sure we bring it into our next lunch and learn. Let's celebrate. Let's talk about this person that, we're about to serve and support. Maybe we want a photograph on top of, our whiteboard saying, this is our new most important person.
Yep.
Anyways, but all of that stuff comes out of looking at process. Okay. So on Friday's show, we will be doing another Kill the Guru. And yes, Kill the Guru?
Sure.
Yeah.
Title, who are we killing?
So we're killing Arthur and myself.
Okay.
Yeah, because, so I'm going to explain to any of you out there who are watching. Arthur and I are gurus of marketing, or we've been called gurus of marketing a lot. We actually believe that what we say is complete BS unless somebody's actually doing something. So anytime somebody asks us about something, it's like, well, it could be this. And quite often with our experience, maybe it really is that. But until the person actually does it and becomes their own guru, then it actually means something.
Love it.
Not just because we say so. Anyways, thanks everybody for watching. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on Friday.